This order, and who's going to do the invocation tonight?
We do not have anyone. We couldn't get anybody scheduled, so.
Pastor Jones.
Pastor Jones.
May we bow our heads, please? Dear Heavenly Father, we know that you are always near us and beside us in all that we do. We ask that you be with us this evening as we consider the affairs of this, our great city. We ask that you give us patience to listen, wisdom to decide, and when we leave this place this evening, may we take your love and fellowship with us on our way. We pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Madam Clerk, do we have the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. All present excluding Councilmember Berlucci, who left, was feeling ill.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I have a motion for the certification of the closed session?
So moved. Second.
Moved in a second. Vote is open.
By a vote of 10-0, you've certified the closed session to be in accordance with the motion to recess.
Do I have a motion to approve the informal and formal session of October 19th, 2020?
So moved.
2021.
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Minutes of October. I'm sorry, we don't have it at 1 second. Open the vote, too, please. Now it's open. I apologize.
No problem.
By a vote of 9-0 with Vice Mayor Wilson abstaining, you have approved the minutes as submitted.
Okay, at this point, we have a couple recognitions right here. Mr. Reed and the other members of the American Indian Day Appreciation, please come forward. Mark, come on too. Welcome. All right, thank you. Appreciate you all being here.
Good afternoon.
Whereas Native Americans have utilized the abundance and natural resources of Virginia Beach for over 15,000 years, and whereas the Chesapeake Indian tribe resided in the village settlements in Virginia Beach around the time of the early 17th century arrival of the permanent English colonists in the region. And whereas significant archaeological sites have been found in Virginia Beach that have uncovered details of the Chesapeake settlements. Whereas members of the Nazemond Indian Nation were part of the Powhatan Paramount Chiefdom. And whereas the Nazemond moved to other areas when displaced by the English from their ancestral lands around the Nazemond River, with some settling in areas formerly occupied by the Chesapeake. And whereas the Nazemond Indian Nation were part of the Articles of Peace with King Charles II in 1677, and whereas the government of the United States of America officially recognized the Nazemond Indian Nation in 2018, and whereas members of the Nazemond Indian Nation continue to be vital members of the community in Virginia Beach today, and whereas Chief Emeritus Lee Lockamy is a resident of the city of Virginia Beach, and whereas November was first declared as Native American Heritage Month in the United States of America in 1990, and whereas the Commonwealth of Virginia has commemorated November as Native American Heritage Month since 1996, and whereas the Commonwealth of Virginia has recognized the Wednesday immediately preceding Thanksgiving as American Indian Day of Appreciation. Whereas Native American Heritage Month is the opportunity to recognize and celebrate the American Indians who call Virginia Beach home and whose abilities and contributions strengthen our economy, enrich Virginia Beach's diverse culture, and invigorate Virginia Beach communities. Therefore, I, Robert M. Dyer, Mayor of the City of Virginia Beach, do hereby proclaim November 2021, Native American Heritage Month. Thank you. Shameless photo op.
And Mr. Mayor, Lee has been our Indian chief on the Historic Preservation Commission for quite some time, and he's been a wonderful, valued member.
Thank you. It's been an honor to help the city of Virginia Beach, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And as often said, the strength of Virginia Beach are the people of Virginia Beach and the considerable contributions made. And we're going to do also our best to acknowledge, you know, people that really step on and help make Virginia Beach such a great place. Will Mr. Roger Adams, country music singer and songwriter, come here?
Howdy.
Roger, welcome.
Thank you. I figured I'd be the only one in here with a cowboy hat on.
We did too.
Good stuff. Yeah, but once again, on behalf of the citizens of Virginia Beach, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Roger Adams, a Virginia Beach country music singer and songwriter, for his award-winning music that can be heard worldwide. As the mayor of the city of Virginia Beach, I applaud you for being recognized by some of the most prestigious groups in country music. Your second album crowned 13 awards, including Song of the Year and the World Songwriters Award. I am delighted to know that your hometown is Virginia Beach, and you come home often after spending time in Nashville, Tennessee, where you perform showcase writers' rounds, record your studio, and play with the full band in Nashville premier nightclubs. Your passion and unselfishness to spread musical joy is commendable and has not gone unnoticed by the number of awards that you have received in 2021 alone. I offer my sincere thanks for you, an incredible asset for Virginia Beach, and keep making the great music.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you all. And no matter where my music takes me, I'm always proud to say Virginia Beach is my home.
All right.
So thank you all so much.
Music to my ears.
And let me say, right after the COVID started loosening up, I was at a place where many seniors live, and Roger was providing music entertainment for the first outdoor event that they were able to have after a year. And well done, my friend. Thank you. Okay. Okay, on to public comments. First one is establishment of an independent citizen review board.
The first speaker is Barbara Messner. After Ms. Messner is Lindsay Nathaniel.
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, independent citizen review. Nothing is independent when council appoints people and council spends millions of dollars. I'm still waiting on the FOIA on the bond referendum, on national TV, etc. A lot of it is total misinformation. The people were scammed just like a car dealership scam. Y'all are so happy that you con the people. Using your money. Okay, like I said, all these appointments, you don't even allow us to know the names so we can speak, and you don't allow us to speak any longer. We're allowed to speak for like a month. Including The May 31st Commission. The victim families have asked to be in charge of this and to be on the commission. You've spent a fortune of VB Strong money for moving people around the city, special, all types of things. But and not one of you attended the first or second anniversary. So I think it's wonderful that you do the social things for different people, but you know, you haven't taken care of these people. Thank you.
The next speaker is Lindsay Nathaniel. After Miss Nathaniel is Melissa Lucason.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Dyer and council members. My name is Lindsay Nathaniel. I'm a resident of Virginia Beach and the City Gun Violence Lead for Moms Demand Action, and also a member of SAFE, which is Stand and Advocate for Equity. I come today to speak in support of the Independent Citizens Review Board that was unanimously recommended by the task force that you appointed. Recently, Virginia Beach has been in the spotlight nationwide for its toxic leadership. To quote Pharrell Williams, "I love my city, but for far too long it has been run by and with toxic energy." That came after the narrative changed several times around the homicide of his cousin, Donovan Lynch, who was killed by Virginia Beach police. Curbing the toxicity requires confronting America's history of racism, reimagining the role of police, and implementing policies that reduce police gun violence. A key component to detox Virginia Beach and restore public trust is through passing an ordinance fully resourcing an independent citizens review board. In order to move forward, we need accountability, not the same old, same old. We need an independent citizens review board with subpoena power. Virginia Beach currently has a review-focused board, the Investigation Review Panel, which was created in 1991, 2 years after clashes between police and thousands of college students at Greek Fest. Butch Bracknell, who chaired the panel for 2 years, called it a token gesture with no real power to hold the police department accountable, per a Virginia Pilot article. At a time when people are demanding a complete rethink of policing, we need to increase accountability for the bad apples while preserving the benefits that police on a whole provide to our community. If empowered, the Independent Citizens Review Board can look not only at individual instances of police misconduct, but at local policing patterns and practices with a wide lens, and help build back community trust with accountability that we so desperately need. The Independent Citizens Review Board is an important piece to enhancing public trust and ensuring that organizations designed to serve and protect do so equitably. The time is long overdue to pass the unanimous recommendation of the task force that our elected Virginia Beach City Council members commissioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Melissa Lucason. After Miss Lucason is Pat Gudzinski.
Welcome.
My name is Melissa Lucason, and I'm here to ask you to vote to pass an ordinance fully resourcing an independent citizen review board with all of the authorities and the unanimous recommendation of the appointed task force. I hope the hesitant members of City Council will vote to replace the current IRP with the new ICRB, seriously taking advisement from the very talented group of volunteers on that task force that spent 795 man-hours crafting the framework you have received. There are 800,000 sworn police officers in the United States. At any given year, approximately 2,000 officers have been arrested for some crime or another. That's a small percentage. But other than politicians, how many criminals do we need to have paid by the taxpayers? Police are paid with our money. They're trained by our government. They're given military equipment. They're given protections that even after they violate our rights, they're not investigated because it's their colleagues tasked to do the investigating. They aren't prosecuted because it's their friend in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office who makes that decision. The few officers that are prosecuted are often acquitted by judge or jury. If you sue them civilly, the case gets thrown out because of qualified immunity. There are very few situations for a citizen to have their rights vindicated when the government violates them, especially when the person violating them is wearing a badge. Qualified immunity costs taxpayers millions of dollars in civil settlements paid by cities and police departments. That is not an effective method of accountability. A critic of police practices and procedures is not an opponent of or enemy of police. I am not anti-police. I am anti-police brutality and corruption. I want all of you to understand that I speak from a place of passion because I believe passion persuades. Growing up as the daughter of a police officer, I pushed the boundaries. When my father complained about my frequent interactions with the police well into adulthood, I lovingly remind him that I was an observant child, and he taught me everything I know. I am an assertive, defensive driver that likes to get where I'm going, and my very first personalized license plate said 2 lead feet. Thanks to my dad, I have a good sense of humor and a wee bit of entitlement. At one point, I was on the DMV's driver improvement program after racking up a pretty impressive negative point balance. I was threatened with revocation if I kept pretending to be Danica Patrick racing around town. Do you know what wasn't threatened? My life. Donovan Lynch didn't know that his life was going to end on March 26th. The officer that shot him didn't know that his life would drastically change that night either. Conflicting witness accounts and not a shred of video evidence from police or bystanders does nothing but continue to erode the trust in police. The city is on the edge of a precipice, almost over the edge. The loss of something in the Water Music Festival was another blow to the confidence in city leadership. The disappointment is reverberating through this city, and it seems appropriate to ask that you vote to pass the new ICRB as a gesture to rebuild trust. The calls are growing louder.
Thank you very much.
And soon will be deafening. We
Appreciate
can't
it.
quash the voices that want to be heard.
The next speaker is Pat Kaczynski, and then Susan Losberg.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, council members and Mayor Dyer. I am a 27-year resident, voter, and taxpayer in Virginia Beach, and I'm here to voice my strong support for public safety and the quality of life for my family and others in Virginia Beach. I am here to support the task force recommendation for the Independent Citizens Review Panel. The fact that the members of the board, each one selected by an elected city council member and from differing backgrounds, unanimously support going forward with this important initiative is a powerful statement about its benefit and practicability. I am also a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Our organization's mission is to end gun violence in all its forms. No one here can underestimate the gravity and massive effort necessary to achieve this goal. As I spend more time learning, advocating, and listening to the stories of those we wish to support, it is clear that every step we take to move positively forward with community relationships and partnerships is crucial. Moms Demand Action seeks sensible and reasoned solutions to support our mission. One of our most valuable lessons has been to understand and elevate the experience and expertise of members of the community who are directly affected by violence. They are the experts who know the needs of their neighbors and families. They want to be safe. As a movement, we recognize the necessity of our city leadership and law enforcement in working with these grassroots community advocacy groups to combine efforts to address the root cause of increasing gun violence here in our city. The positive adoption of the resolution to form an independent citizens review panel who unanimously support its establishment is a keystone in bettering cooperation and understanding between those who live day to day with the hardship and consequences of violence and those in law enforcement who strive to be their protectors. The independent CRP, which includes those who represent the diversity and interests of our city, is an exemplary and necessary opportunity to provide transparency, accountability, and a foundation for trust between our city leadership, law enforcement, and those who work to make their communities safe for their families. Confidence and communication are vital to mutual understanding and respect. I urge you to consider each of your trusted representatives' advice carefully and make the Citizens Review Panel a reality. This is a hopeful and certain step in achieving our mutual goal to make our city safer for all. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The next speaker is Susan Losberg, and then Mike Hashemi.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, Mayor Dyer and City Council members. I am a resident of Virginia Beach, and I'm also a local co-lead of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I would like to thank all of you elected City Council members who approved a Citizens Review Board task force, and each of you for having appointed a member of that task force. I am here today to support the unanimous recommendations for an independent Citizens Review Board by the task force and ask you all to support the recommendations as well. I don't think anyone would argue that police presence in our community isn't vital. I know I have relied on their protections like so many of you, but I also believe most of us agree that their presence is not perfect. There are some police officers who are, as they say, bad apples, but there are also some who have not been trained well or come with their own preconceived notions that may get in the way of good policing. Additionally, I think we can all agree, and data supports this, that communities of color are more harmed by bad policing than white communities. And this harm can range from discourteous behavior to behavior that results in avoidable injury and death to members of our community. Our present investigative review panel is just simply not effective. There is no meaningful oversight. For an ICRB to be a meaningful tool to keep the police accountable and serve the community, it must have the following components: investigative powers, including subpoena power, transparency, independence, meaningful disciplinary power, budget, and scope of investigations. Civilian oversight boards can be effective at holding police accountable and reducing instances of the unnecessary use of force. Effective ICRBs hold the promise of enhancing public safety and renewing public trust in police, especially within Black and brown communities. To succeed, civilian oversight boards need resources and authority to maintain accurate data and foster relationships with city officials and community members, and to do so equitably. Above all, they must operate independently of police departments themselves. With the recent police shooting of Donovan Lynch and events that resulted from that shooting, our city has been thrust into the national spotlight, and not, as we all know, in a good way. We need to restore public trust, especially within our communities of color. Again, I ask you, each of you, who were elected by the citizens of our great city and who each appointed one member of the CRB task force, to accept their unanimous recommendations and vote to create an independent Citizens Review Board using the recommended guidelines, following these recommendations with the intent to avoid barriers that have historically limited the effectiveness of police investigations, will empower this body to look not only at individual instances of police misconduct, but at local policing patterns and practices, and affect real change and save lives. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Mike Hashimi. After Mr. Hashimi is Gary McCollum.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to express my support for this panel, and I'd like to hope that not only does it address our issues with the police department, the chief and other people who work for the police are following orders not only from the chief but also from the deputy and sheriff's department, and deputies have a role in this. And I hope that this panel looks at the issues that we might have regarding that, whether it's the Commonwealth Attorney and the sheriff's department having a familiar relationship, what can lead to issues and corruption, whether it's slandering a candidate that's running against the sheriff, whether it's voter intimidation by deputies that are now sitting on city council. I think we need to make sure that we look into these, not only the police officers that are in blue, but the ones that are also in beige.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Gary McCollum. After Mr. McCollum is Jay Boone.
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, first let me thank you for appointing the task force, to Mr. Montero, who's in the audience, for his leadership. I stand here this morning, or this evening, as president and founder of Do the Right Thing, saying that we are in support of this recommendation. But at the same time, it's apparent that there are things in this recommendation that really doesn't go far enough. I think it's a great first step, and let me highlight a couple. First off, there still is a question that remains whether or not this new ICRB will truly be independent. Will it actually root out police overreach, misconduct, and in some cases, brutality and fatalities, which we've had in the past. While again, there's some good things coming out of the task force recommendations, I would encourage City Council to unanimously support this recommendation and implement this recommendation immediately. But let me talk quickly about three things that I think we still need to do. First off, is this again truly an independent body? This organization will report to the city manager after a lengthy internal investigation by Police Internal Affairs. Is that really independence? The board coordinator is also chosen by the city manager and not by the board. Again, you selected this board, so why, or you would select the board, why would you not let the board pick the coordinator? Again, the board is also subject to the city council budget, and so again, will this be a priority of this council? We've had other issues around, particularly the Minority Business Council and other places where you had the authority, but you didn't give it priority within the budget. Secondly, there are simply too many bureaucratic hoops that this board will have to jump through in order for a subpoena to happen. I'll just give you one. The fact that you have to have a supermajority to actually go to that place makes it nearly impossible for that to happen, and I'm sure you're aware of that. Make it a simple majority of the board. You would appoint them, trust them to do their jobs. Thirdly, the lack of disciplinary power. Can the ICRB do anything other than just simply make recommendations? It's not clear. They can concur with police findings, but what if they action against a guilty officer? What if they don't? The city doesn't recommend any disciplinary action. Can the ICRB really do anything other than simply recommend policy changes? So again, we are for this, but we think it's a great first step. We think those three items that we've highlighted clearly need to be addressed, and we hope you will do that in the future. Virginia Beach is the largest city in the Commonwealth. Let's act like it and let's lead. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Jay Boone. I do not see Ms. Boone in the audience. Brad Belton. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's Ms. Boone. Mr. Belton, if you'll just hold, go ahead. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you for finally bringing this to the table. It's an important issue that we've been waiting for some answers to. I feel like I am a bit worried. I feel like the drag out has been just to kind of, gaslight or rather push us at bay until you decide no, yes, whatever the case may be. But I just hope that if you do make a decision negatively towards the citizen review panel, that you at least tell us why you voted no, and then also just explain what we would need to do so that we can get it passed. Because again, the community is in fear for their lives, and I don't think that it's right that you're supposed to represent everyone in the community. And if the community has come to you countless times and asked for change, then if nothing's getting done about it, then it's very obvious that you're silencing those people and those voices. It's very important that we have accountability, and even the police chief has said that his officers want to, have body cams and be accountable, and that this council as well has said those same things. But it's just about actually putting, work behind that. And that citizen review panel, even though I wish that we did have more people, activists, organizations that were in the area on there, the people that you did elect actually put together a very good packet for you guys to look over. And, these people were also voted by you all here. So I just feel like any more talk about it seems just a waste of time and energy when we can actually just be putting action behind what we've already set into motion. We waited all summer for a plan of action, and now that we have one, now it's almost 2022 and we still have nothing. And it's very sad. And at the end of the day, the shooting that happened on March 26th, someone has to be accountable for that. Outside of the homicide aspect of that, there should be someone, there's a reason we don't have any footage, right? Those cameras by Axon are supposed to ignite as soon as one officer is on the scene, and all the other officers' body cams are supposed to go off as well. There were 3 incidences that night where all the police, Station 2 should have been activated. There's no footage of that. There's no camera footage. There's nothing. So it's either the police officer that was on the first scene are responsible. It's either the police chief for not making sure that the machines work. It's either Axon for not providing actual working equipment, or it's this council for not, again, making sure that the police force have proper equipment when they're interacting with the community. But again, accountability needs to be had, and it's even past the day-to-day things. Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming.
The next speaker is Brad Belton. After Mr. Belton is Andrew Jackson.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Brad Belton. Excuse me if I'm a little nervous, but I am here in favor of the Citizen Review Board. I've heard all of the other people speak on the good things and then the flaws that are in this thing. As a citizen of Virginia Beach and also an employee of the city of Virginia Beach, I don't feel safe. And I am ex-security in this city. I have over 20 years serving this city. 10th cleanest city in the United States. Largest resort city on the planet. But we have so much of a gap. Nobody is taking this seriously. I'm not saying y'all not, but there's a problem that needs to be addressed. Pharrell said cancer culture. It's a dangerous culture. I need y'all, as an employee, who've elected some of y'all, to take us seriously. The police needs to have this oversight over them. And they need to not only have an oversight, they need to be able to discipline these officers when they break the laws. They should be able to put aside qualified immunity. That's the only way all of the citizens of this great city is going to feel protected and also, more importantly, be included and taken seriously in this city. Because we all are part of this great city and this nation. We sink together or we rise together. All it takes is for evil to prosper, is for good people to do nothing. I don't see no bad people up here. Let's make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Andrew Jackson. After Mr. Jackson will be Carl Wright.
Good evening.
Good evening, afternoon. Somebody leave this?
It's for the presentations.
Oh, that's for me. Let me say first that I appreciate the appointment of a special task force. Most of you up here know I've been trying for a year to put a program in front of you. What this task force did in 6 weeks, I took 2.5 years to do. I knew what they were doing. I visited one of their sessions. I understand what they have to do, but I understand that there's a group that has to do this. And the last time I heard anything about a review panel, it wasn't good. See that? I got 3 pages of this. You know what this is? This is over the last 20 years, police shootings. I've been here for a while. I've investigated, I think, Mayor, you know I investigated one here recently. I'm working on 2 more. I shouldn't have to do that on my own. I'm a good investigator. 15 years criminal defense. I can investigate. I can find a rock when you hide it in the sand. That shouldn't be necessary. There are some issues. But we are not alone. You can look at the news, you can look at it across this country. You go to international review boards of law enforcement. They're looking at this country. It's a shame when we can say in a period of just a few years, 15,000 police shootings in this country. 15,000. From 2011 to now, every year there's been at least 1,000, with the exception of 1 year. They only had 900 and something. They had 27 days out of 365 there was no police shootings. 27 days. We have a problem. We need this review board. I agree with it. I think there's some things that need to be done. And I have a plan that I've been working on 2.5 years. It's probably got most of what they have because they followed what I already did. But understand, it's not gonna, we're just gonna select somebody and they go do what they do. There's probably 3 to 6 months worth of training. At least. And there's gotta be a diverse unit, a diverse group. I would like to thank Ms. Wooten for that push. That's a little extra push. That, I guess that's what got this group together, task force. Yeah, heard your name in the neighborhoods. I know you've been working. I'm out there. I understand what's going on. 2 o'clock in the morning, you might find me talking to somebody in Lake Edwards or over in College Park.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Do your job, folks.
Thank you.
I'd appreciate a response, too, to my communication.
The next speaker is Carl Wright, and then Mayor and members of council, we will then go to the Webex speakers.
Okay. Welcome, Carl.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council people, Mr. Branch, welcome back again. There's not much more I can say. People have spoken. You know, I hope we're listening. I hope you all are listening. The people have spoken. And I want to thank folks. I feel really proud tonight because I'm going to be honest with you, Miss Henley. I used to come down here. I didn't feel very welcome when Georgia and I used to come down here. And I want to say tonight, I feel better now with the cross-reference of folks coming out saying the right thing, doing the right thing. I feel really rejuvenated. I feel really charged tonight. Because I remember I used to come down here and I was look at some of you guys and I felt like I wasn't even supposed to be here. Now tonight, I feel like I'm supposed to be here. We need to move forward on this Citizen Review Board. The people have already spoken. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. We've been down the road. We've been here. We've been in all these different committees. We've done all these different things. I think Brother Mccollum said some things that he was concerned with, some things I'm concerned with. We know we need subpoena power. We know we need investigative power. We know, I like the city manager too, but I don't think it's fair to drop it on his desk and then blame him when things don't go right. If it's truly independent, John, let it be truly independent. I trust these folks. I trust the city to a certain point. If we're gonna do it right, let's do it right and let's be fair and honest about it. I know some of you all don't feel comfortable with that, but we gotta get over those things. You know, the police is gonna be here whether we have a citizen review board or not. Just because we assemble a strong citizen review board to do the right thing, that doesn't mean it's gonna counsel our police department. You don't have to worry about going to Food Line and somebody robbing you and not being able to call the police. That ain't gonna happen. The police will be here. They're not going anywhere. I'm kind of concerned for some of our folks that's not here that represent myself. Now, I don't like that. I like my folk to be at the table if you represent me. And that's just my take on it. We need to do the right thing. This Citizen Review Board it should have been here, but I'm glad, we went through all the rigmarole and different African-American committee and the different committees, Mr. Mayor. Now we need to get down to the nitty-gritty and get it in place. I want to thank those of you that carried the water for this thing, because I can tell you, when I first started coming up here, that won't happen now. That was not happening. So I want to say to you all that actually carried the water, thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's get it done tonight. With that said, if there's no questions, I'm going back and sit down and wait for you all to do the right thing. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll now begin our Webex speakers. Sarah Clark. Ms. Clark, if you would just pause 2 to 3 seconds before beginning, you are unmuted. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Clark. I am a longtime resident of Virginia Beach, and I'm here to voice my support for fully implementing the Independent Citizen Review Board as unanimously recommended by the task force. I believe this is a key step toward rebuilding public trust and ensuring equitable public safety. Thank you.
The next speaker via Webex is Holly Edwards. I do not believe she is online, so we'll go to the next, which is Dr. Veronica Coleman. And I'm being told she's not online either. Suzanne Soliditz, if you would please pause 2 to 3 seconds before beginning. Thank you. You are unmuted.
Good evening, council members. My name is Suzanne Saltesiak, and I am a resident of Virginia Beach. I'm also a member of Stand and Advocate for Equity. I strongly support following the unanimous recommendations of the task force that you, our elected representatives, selected to review this issue. I have to admit, I was initially concerned about the makeup of the task force, particularly the amount of appointees that had worked within law enforcement and legal professions that were appointed to a task force that was specifically about citizen representation and oversight. While I agree it's important for their representation to be there, it is even more of an imperative for citizens to be represented in the policing of our community. So I have to say I was a little surprised when the task force came back with the unanimous recommendations for so many things I believe are a good start for our community. But to me, that they came back with that unanimous recommendation speaks even louder to the need for implementation. I just have to say that one word again, unanimous, that so many who were in the justice apparatus to see that same need for oversight and transparency speaks volumes. One thing that is dear to my heart is democracy. As we all know, you are representatives of the people. Just as the police force, the justice apparatus, they are all of and for the people. I would never say they work for me, as I've heard some say about public employees and servants. That's disrespectful and not quite how this works. But they are empowered and sanctioned by the votes of citizens, as are most of you. As such, the citizens deserve a role in how such an impactful part of our community government operates and oversight into how other citizens in positions of authority and power utilize that power. That is the very core and foundation of our government. And the relationship between our policing and our community, it is fractured. When there is such fracture and distrust and lack of transparency between people in a position of authority or power, and so many of that community that it is representing, this is when it becomes important, nay, vital to bring the community into that structure. It is important for transparency, for relationships, for community, and for democracy. We've had a national spotlight shined on our community and the way that policing and justice happens within it. It has shown that fracture and lack of trust. And now with that spotlight still shining on, you have a task force that has given you their unanimous recommendations for how to begin healing and helping to restore that relationship, trust, and transparency. How can you not? I implore you to vote to implement these recommendations as a start with immediacy and no further delays. We need equitable solutions so that we can begin to ensure that all of our citizens are a part of this process. We need healing and a place for voices that haven't been a part of this process to be heard. We need to begin to detox Virginia Beach.
Last speaker is Erica Scaife. If you would pause 2 to 3 seconds before beginning, you are unmuted, ma'am.
Good evening, council members. My name is Erica Scaife, and I'm a citizen of Virginia Beach. I wanted to just take a minute tonight to share my support for the recommendations of the task force for the Independent Citizen Review Board. This task force made unanimous recommendations. We must have the citizen oversight in order to restore transparency and trust with the community. A police department is a key public safety organization, but it is most effective at doing that when it's transparent and responsive to the community it serves. Every member on the panel that you selected is advising you that this is an important step toward increasing transparency and responsiveness and toward creating equity. I'm asking that you vote to support all of the recommendations of the task force. Thank you.
Mayor, that's all the speakers.
And thank you all who spoke for your input. Thank you all very much. Very valuable. Thank you.
We do not have him signed up for this item.
Okay, you're not signed up.
You
For
signed
op-
up for open
Okay,
dialogue.
sir.
For open dialogue is what he is signed up for.
No, you're signed up for open dialogue. That'll be in a little while.
Mr. Mayor, we might want to
Yes.
mention we're not voting tonight. We'll
Okay,
vote
go
next
right ahead.
Tuesday. No, I
Okay.
think Clea should come.
You know, this is just a public hearing. The vote will be coming, hopefully shortly. But we are not voting tonight. This is just a public hearing. But your comments are well taken. Thank you. Okay, and then next on is the allocation of the Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant.
We have one speaker, Barbara Messner. Ms. Messner. This is the second public comment. H2.
Thank you. Okay, allocation of Edward Byrne Justice Assistance for law enforcement purposes. Mr. Jackson isn't the only one that's been paying attention to crime in the city. I've been here 40 years. I've paid attention to almost all of it. And NAACP spoke in 2017 about the body cams. And there was $300,000 sent from the state. You didn't implement them, but you spent $4 million on cameras for the oceanfront, which you've finally expanded to other areas. But we don't need cameras, we need boots on the ground. You need to make it to where the police want to work and they're allowed to do their jobs and not be private security for special events, etc. Yeah, like I said, we have a budget. This is allocation of a grant, but the city is responsible, and you shouldn't be needing grants. You should know how to run the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Messner, if you'd like to stay, because the public hearings after the mayor opens them, you're the only speaker for that as well.
Okay, next and under public hearings, the proposed charter amendments, filling vacancies on city council, and B, the membership of the Board of Equalization.
Okay, if you'd name them while I'm up here. Okay, so,
I-1.
under ordinances?
Public hearings, ma'am, I-1.
Oh, I thought you said 5. Okay. Public hearings. Okay, charter amendment. Filling vacancies on city council? Correct? Okay. Like I said, and there were some good speakers the last time this was brought up. Our entire election system and the fact that y'all appoint people to fill vacancies is insane. If there's a vacancies, there should be a special election. I believe Dorothy Patterson spoke about that. And people who are sworn into office and then they leave, how many have left early? To go on to, to take other positions, they want to run for higher office, etc. Let's see. Yeah, plus the election system. There needs to be a lot of, you don't even enforce code. People have their signs all over the place. And the Hatch Act. I forgot to bring some of the papers because, but I think there's violation of the Hatch Act when elected officials use their position, and when elected officials use their position and like town hall meetings on the bond referendum. I'm just horrified at the way the city's been run, and new vice mayor, missed the first two meetings. No one has to show up for these meetings, and they don't have to be accountable for anything. And I don't know how many millionaires there are on here. Some of the new ones aren't millionaires that I know of, multi-millionaires. But why do some of you even take a salary and benefits when you belong to all these companies? Okay, and then Board of Equalization. These are charter amendments. With the pandemic, there's 150,000 square feet of space at the convention center. Spent $200 million for that. That's where these meetings should be held. I mean, I called you, Mr. Dyer, this weekend about the construction on General Booth. I called like several people at the city. No one emailed me back where the construction sites are. I even called Virginia Paving. I come back the other way, heading south, it's nothing but grid, pitch dark. And then coming here today, there's not one sign, and they tore up the other side. I mean, the city is so mismanaged, it's just insane. Okay,
Okay, that's it for now, right?
Okay.
Well, she's the only speaker signed up, so you just open the public hearing on the next item.
Okay, public hearing is the conveyance of easements on city property, 665 Independence Boulevard to Dominion Energy.
Oh, lovely, Dominion Energy. I hope everyone looks at VPAP and sees how much money the alcohol lobby and Dominion put towards these candidates that ran this year. I don't care whether they're Democrat or Republican. The bottom line is, Dominion is a mega monopoly. And some people who have major stock shouldn't be here when we're discussing anything to do with Dominion. Conveyance of an easement. You give conveyance of easements to Verizon, Cox, all these cell towers. And then you pass along the fees to us, and they charge us a fortune. I attended Ms. Henley's meeting, which, she and Mr. Langford refused to send me the information. I showed up anyway, had to do my research. And Ashley McLeod was there promoting Kitty Hawk Offshore, which came out of the bond referendum. There's too many things going on. People don't know. Every one of you should be having town hall meetings and letting us decide on the topic. But, yeah, I oppose to this. Dominion Energy. Okay. Three.
I need him to open the public hearing first, ma'am.
Okay, next is a public hearing on the acquisition of agricultural land preservation, ARP easement, installment purchase agreement for 31.98 plus or minus acres at 4469 Charity Neck Road.
ARP program. One of our newly elected people is not on the local level, is in the Millionaires Club for the Agricultural Reserve Program. Some of these people who remember things, you remember the green line? My God, it's the greed line. I've never seen so much uncontrolled growth, so much flooding, and this insane bond referendum. Yes, the current cycle, canal program, 95 years. This is the first phase, 567 million. And then the design, okay, so the current, so this is 30 years of malfeasance. A lot of these, the crumbling infrastructure that you keep building on belonged to Norfolk before you merged, which Ms. Henley, her little social event with only 25 people, talked about, when the city was formed. Oceanfront facilities maintenance, I wonder who's gonna get the money first. Lake management, 95-year plan. So we're supposed to pay you for negligent taking care of things, and then all of you vote for these projects? Ms. Henley even votes for projects at, for Bruce Thompson, Gold Key. Yeah, speaking of the Cavalier and Gold Key, you know, Florida Wrecking and Salvage, tearing down the beautiful Cavalier properties, a Florida company, out-of-state contractor, and they hook up to the water. So does Breeden, Ms. Wilson, you know, for the Pinnacle. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to read the speaker policy. I want to remind everyone that the City Council speaker policy that allows certain representatives of groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items. All other speakers, whether speaking individually or on behalf of a group, will have 3 minutes to speak. Speakers are reminded that comments during the formal portion of the meeting must be limited to the subject of the item that is being considered by the council at the time you are called. When speakers are called on each item, the clerk will call for those individuals who have signed up to speak. We have several speakers with only one item signed up. As such, the city clerk will call the speaker and identify each item that they have registered on. The speaker will receive 3 minutes to comment on each item. Again, the speaker must limit his or her comments to the subject matter of the items they have signed up to address. Finally, I call upon all speakers and all persons in the chamber to be civil in their discussion and decorum. Whatever views you hold and wish to express, the City Council wants to hear from you and to ensure that all viewpoints and all persons are respected. The best way to do this is for all of us to strive for civility and respect. Okay, first speaker.
We have one speaker signed up on multiple items, Ms. Messner. And I'll just give her the item as she's speaking, if that's okay. Ms. Messner, the first item is Ordinance and Resolutions
If you can wait until I look at the notes, please.
K2B, ma'am.
Okay. K2B.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You know, I wish there was better parliamentary procedure. I brought that up for years. I mean, you know, I don't know if Mr. Stiles left temporarily or, you know, permanently. Okay. Okay. Request to the General Assembly amend the city charter. Expand the membership board of equalization requested by member Moss. Mr. Moss used to answer my emails, allow me to see what he was posting on Facebook, which he quit during the arena deal. But yeah, I don't, you know, like I said, there's too many liaisons. You appoint each other as liaisons. You have all these groups. You have the RAC meeting. It's on and on and on. Everything is ultimately your responsibility. You vote, you hire the city manager. Good evening, Mr. Duhaney. And then he hires the chief. And then the chief goes to select neighborhoods. This city is absolutely, you know, ridiculous. And, you know, I may not be exactly polite, but after 20 plus years, I'm really frustrated that other people don't read the agendas. They don't care. They don't understand. And like I said, you know, maybe when you decide to have your back and forth discussions whether or not you're going to go along with these things, you can tell us why you don't have town hall meetings at locations that are convenient for everyone, because you vote on everything. Okay?
The next item is number 3, under Ordinance and Resolutions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Barnes.
Yes, ma'am.
Ordinance to authorize the dedication of 2,218 square feet utility easement for Dominion Energy. And I still would like to know why Mr. Moss is still sitting here. To serve Hampton Road Sanitation Department facilities on city-owned properties at 665 Independence Boulevard. You know, we have uncontrolled growth, and there's someone, a really excellent employee that was moved from another department, trying to get Dominion to replace the light poles that all these giant vehicles crash into all the time. And the fact that the lighting is so poor throughout the city, Mr. Dehaney, you know, I did ask you to look into why there's no street lights at major intersections, the hospital corridor. That hasn't been done. I don't think after waiting all this time that I should have to keep bringing up the unsafe thing. There's accidents all over the place. Part of it is because people can't see, and we're not notified. You know, you notify 1 or 2 people. Okay.
What's next?
Are you ready for the next item? 4A, B, and C.
Okay. Acquisition of agricultural land preservation, preserve. Preservation means preserve. Easement, Melvin H. Eaton II, basically 32 acres. And we're going to take out more bonds to buy this. Air tax dollars. $238,784, transfer funds to purchase U.S. Treasury strips. We have $3 billion debt. You're not paying down the debt like the convention center. It's taken with, a lot of that property was taken by eminent domain. You're still paying down the debt. I think it's due to be paid in 2028. I mean, who will be alive in 95 years to see if, you know, raising the roads and everything above the floodwater is going to make a difference on the bond referendum?
Lord, I hope I'm here. Being fair, I'm going to stick around as long as I can, Ms. Smith.
It would be nice if you'd answer other questions. Okay.
Are you ready for the next item, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. 5A.
I'm glad there's some humor in here because this is deadly effing serious. People are dying. People are dying all over the city, regionally, and all you do is waste air money. Air money. People can't drive anywhere in the city. There's crashes, and the police, there aren't enough police. There haven't been enough police for decades. And then if you looked at the workshop last week, it's like 70%, 20%, whatever. Public works people are overworked. We should not be having any entertainment whatsoever. You shouldn't reward 39 years of criminal behavior in the off-season in April and then have parties for those people. I'm sorry. You have parties in their neighborhood and you put boys clubs, girls clubs all over the place, and you put something decent for our first responders. They don't need to drink alcohol. We don't need a friggin' police brewery that's a distribution. I'm sorry. I'm frustrated. I don't want to come here. It's gorgeous weather today. I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of the fact that y'all don't give a damn. Okay. Okay. Ms. Barnes?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure. So have you spoke on 5A? So you were speaking on 5A.
Okay, all right.
And this is on consent to be deferred to January 18th. If you want.
5A?
Are you, yes, but
Okay, okay. Stormwater Management Appeals Board. Okay, I'm just gonna go over this again. I don't usually call the media because they're funded by, you partner with them. You even partner with TV 10 for hiring police. Used to be that people wanted a city job, great benefits, great work conditions. Now you have to advertise. Who wants to work and wear a mask? Who wants to be told they have to have a shot? Yes, we're exempt, but the school board isn't, and you fund them. You fund the school board. How about withholding the money until they open the schools? All right.
the next item is 5B. Again, this has been the consent for deferral to January the 18th.
Okay, 5B. Section 1-2 of the Public Works Design Standards Manual, Ray variances. And this is something I forgot to bring, but there is a national light ordinance. And I think David Pace from the schools was working on that for y'all, and then planning was supposed to work on it, and no one is working on it. But there's a national code that y'all should be in compliance with. And the noise and other quality of life, there's a state code for Virginia, like Alexandria. You know, they have different codes that they enforce. You don't enforce anything and you don't have enough people to do it. All right.
6A.
6A.
Yes, ma'am.
Extend the date to satisfy conditions. Closing 1/2 of unimproved, unnamed alley, paper roads, to the rear of 837 Atlantic Avenue in Croatan. This is a public safety. You need access for responders, and with all this uncontrolled growth, plus you have short-term rentals all over the place. There's no affordable housing, and there's signs. This special, like the portable things that show how fast you're going. That's in Croatan. They have private police for Croatan. Where the heck are the police in the other neighborhoods? Okay. Closing Lake Avenue, Oak Street. Okay, that one's pulled, correct?
No, ma'am, that's the next one you are speaking on.
Okay, closing Lake Avenue, Oak Street, and portions of Locust, Crescent, and Ellis Avenue. That's where you had the wild party. I forget what it's called. This whole city is nothing but a wild party. That's all you want to do is entertain, sell alcohol, get alcohol tax, get people drunk, put them on the roads, and then you don't have the police stop them until there's a deadly accident. Okay, so, you know, there is no parking at the north end. There's no parking at the ocean front. People have a right to go to the beach and relax. Maybe the kids wouldn't be in as much trouble if there were shuttles, you know, from their neighborhood, instead of the, I think there are 500,000 million, those trolleys. You keep changing the trolleys. The tourists and the locals don't want to ride the trolleys. You have the trolleys taking them from the tacky, loud resort strip where they can't even drive their cars anywhere over to Pleasure House Point. You know, like I said, is that it?
No, ma'am. 7A.
Yeah. I hope people are noting that, you know, this affects everybody in the city. There's 450,000 people. but a lot of them tonight are probably at the school board. You know, if y'all really wanted to, you know, be accountable and access, you could do something so we could attend both. I think it was changed for you, Mr. Jones, at one point. Okay, okay. Number 7?
7A, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Property known as Treasure Canal. I think there's some, canals in this. Yep, where are they? Canal program, 95 years, 25 years, 1,500,000. Service associated with additional funding, 1.5 miles. Where's the city auditor? Who's looking at our money? Okay.
Are you ready for the next item?
Wait a minute. Oh, here we go. No, I'm just, it's really hard to do all of this when there's no other speakers. Construct and maintain bulkhead, riprap, timber pier, boat lift, and roof structure. There isn't enough staff, you know, to take care of this, and you know, planning works for the developers. You want people to keep, you know, and they have to pay. I don't know, Windward Shore, that's a really exclusive neighborhood. We have contaminated waters, broken pumps, you know, like I said, you know, we should be able to know where all the construction is, and it shouldn't be never ending. The reason it's never ending on Laskin Road is because you're trying to replace water pipes, storm drains, pump stations. The pump station by Laskin Community Chapel, that's still broken. That's where you had the 92 million gallons of sewage that contaminated the waterways. We have contaminated waterways. People get sick from contamination. Okay?
The next item is 7B.
Okay, property located at the rear of 2460 Entrada Drive. Construct and maintain timber bulkhead, wharf, and boat lift. Yeah, I mean, some people, if the property is not encroaching or causing problems for everyone else, there's not a problem. But to have all this stuff going on when you can't take care of the rest of the city, you know, some people should have to wait for these things. But the developers don't wait for anything, do they? And some people who, you know, seem so concerned about it, everything, the quality of life for their people. We're all Americans, and public safety should be for everybody. We shouldn't have, you know, Indian Month, Hispanic, you know, Cultural Center. You know, what about the rest of us? We shouldn't be funding it. If they want to do it, fine. Okay. There's not enough land. It should be, how about a skate park in Red Wing? How about putting a fence around there and having something for the kids to do? There's 600 homes there. You turned Red Wing Park into a commercial political park. All right, so next one?
8A.
Okay. This was spoken on before. 78,000 from Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant, JAG, to the 2021-2022 Police Department and Community Corrections Operating Budget, Ray Law Enforcement Purposes. And even though, you know, I'm concerned and I spoke against the, you know, the oversight, I do want oversight. I just don't want y'all to decide on where and when. And I would like to know why all these people were not concerned and where was the outrage when these 12 people were brutally murdered and the police did not, they had a mock mass shooting along with your friggin' something in the water. Okay, I'm on track. I'm sorry you don't like what I say, but the truth hurts. And it's still hurting these victim families who are trying to get justice. So a lot of these people, I appreciate the fact, it's horrific that it's taken this many murders for them to get organized, but where were they speaking out on these people? That's all I have to say. Okay? Is that it?
No, ma'am. B.
Okay. Like I said, I don't like being upset, Mr. Dyer. You asked for us to be civil. It would be civil if, you know, y'all would have town halls and let us speak and you would meet with us. You wouldn't meet with, you know, and you had a fundraiser. You had a fundraiser, you know, $5,000 a plate after this last election. You know, some people pay attention. They don't show up, but they do pay attention. Okay, would you repeat it again, Ms. Barnes? You're earning your keep tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. 8B.
8B. Okay. $220,000 from EVMS. Mr. Northam's back there again. He's working for EVMS and Centera. Where'd they come up with $220,000 from EVMS Medical School? 2021-2022 Parks and Recreation operating budget to provide child care for financially challenged families. Open our schools. Take the mask off our schools. Let the kids go to the rec center. You don't have different rules for city council here than you have in their schools. You know, it's $1 billion budget. And you compete against private industry, the rec centers. And the cost for the rec center is outrageous. You don't have a sliding scale. Seniors and kids, you know, families, it's outrageous. And then you also run the adventure park. You have, I don't know, you just spend too much money for the resort industry, and that money does not lower air taxes, and it doesn't fill the voids in the police and, you know, the other departments. Okay, 3.
8C, ma'am.
Oh, I meant to say that. 8C. $1,882,004 from Virginia Department of EMS, Emergency Management. And their past emergency manager, you know, went with the state. She got a job with Northam. 22 emergency management operating budget, Ray flood mitigation at qualified residential properties. How many different pools of money are you going to be helping certain people? You know, I'm still waiting. I sure as heck hope that there's a federal audit of how we spend our money on VB Strong. Excuse me, I hate to say that. I like what Debbie Langer said, VB Wrong. And I don't appreciate those blue logos that you made, Love Virginia Beach. You should have love for the victim families, not for yourselves. Okay.
9A.
9A. Transfer $250,000 $250,000 to CIP, capital project, courts, technology system sustainment. I love these terms. Replace the paging system in court building. Why on earth does it cost $250,000 to replace the paging system in a court building? I mean, in our communications director, Julie Hill, I heard she just retired. I didn't get anything about that. She was hired by Jim Spohr. And Peter Pedro Wallace is the chief information officer. We are not getting the information. Even when I call, there was a 311 operator, I wanted something basic. They don't have a clue, and they take over for 911. Okay, like I said, it's management. Y'all are all responsible. And I think I'm putting Miss Hindley to sleep. Good morning. Sorry. Do you want to nudge your partner there? Okay. Or maybe you're looking at your cell phone. I don't know. I don't know. I need a little levity here. Okay.
9B.
9B. Oh, God. Okay. $150,000. I hope you're adding up all this money. This is one meeting. One meeting. $150,000 to capital project 100076, Excella sustainment. Excel's upgrades. Like I said, y'all know how to spend your money, but you don't know how to lower our taxes, and you don't know how to keep the city safe, or you don't care. Thank you.
If you'll just stand there.
Oh, God.
You want to go ahead and go to the public, open the public hearing?
God.
Okay, open a public hearing on planning.
Oh, God.
No, we haven't done.
Well, that's for the consent agenda.
Yeah, the consent
And then
agenda
the
for
consent.
planning.
Oh,
Yeah,
Not the
get it.
planning consent agenda.
okay.
Yeah.
So number 3,
Okay, so there's no one here for planning?
number 3 is the one that's on, 3, 4, and 5 are on consent under planning right now.
Okay, so I don't speak on,
Don't speak on 1 or 2. You start with number 3.
oh, so 1 and 2 are pulled, and what else?
No, ma'am, just begin with 3, please.
Okay, but are they pulled?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I asked. Okay, Virginia Beach Distilling, LLC. Oceana Crossings, LLC. Conditional use permit, Ray Craft Distillery at 1375 Oceana Boulevard. And I don't know why, Carolyn's here. From planning. But I've been fighting the problems adjacent to Red Wing neighborhood since 2012 when you had the diesel bar. You had drunk drivers crashing into Kids Corner. You know, a little shop for affordable things for families with young kids. They crashed into the brick wall where the Montessori school, and there was a different church there at the time. 3 or 4 times they crashed into Baymark Realty. That hasn't been fixed. It's an alcohol establishment. It's Tim Costin who owns it, and Venture Realty, Sessoms Napolitano, who manage. And this one, I think that, you know, they've already, you know, approved the police brewery, which is a major conflict because the police officer is still employed with the city, and his brother came up here and said that he was the only applicant. I have the application, and I've given it to planning. But there's multiple accidents there. It's only one. Red Wing, we only have one entry and exit onto Oceana Boulevard. We had Secura Lane, which, you know, the kids could go across the street to the park that you've commercialized and destroyed. It's an 8-lane divided highway. And I believe it's VB Vodka. And, you know, it's not a local company. They need storage for all of this. We've been subsidizing the alcohol industry since 2012 for Back Bay Brewery. You know who owns that? You know, Josh Canada, you know, Atkinson, Goldkey, all this stuff. You know, this affects the floods. You know, all this water, all these trucks on the road?
Yep.
I oppose. Thank you.
You have 2 more items, number L4.
Okay. So there's no applicant here. Okay, 4, Sue Kent, conditional use permit, short-term rental. Hello, my rep, Mr. Tower, who's never replied to me once. Good evening, Mr. Kaufman and Knowles. Okay. You know, at one point, you were backing off and saying we need a limit to the percentage in neighborhoods. I mean, this is 901 Pacific Avenue. They're tiny little places, and I've driven by, and they were having parties out there. And that's also near where they had that, where the 7-Eleven is. That's still like a sinkhole that you keep patching there. Their roads are terrible. We don't need strangers who don't know how to drive, and you don't need any more short-term rentals. There's no affordable housing. No affordable housing in the city. Okay?
And the last item is L5, ma'am.
Okay. Conditional use permit, short-term rental, 927 Pacific Avenue. Okay, and I remember when Ms. Henley, Mr. Moss, and Mr. Jones all said, because we didn't have staff, we didn't have anybody to go out and check on public health, public safety, and these short-term rentals, that you weren't going to approve any of them. But you do, you continue to. So, I'm opposed for what it's worth. Okay? That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Madam Vice Mayor, do we have a motion on the
Consent agenda?
consent agenda?
Yes. Under K, 1B, this is the resolution to adopt the city's General Assembly to amend the city charter regarding to expand the membership of the Board of Equalization. Number 3, the ordinance to authorize the dedication of a 2.218 square feet easement to Dominion Energy regard to serve the HRSD facilities on city-owned property at 665 Independence Boulevard, with Mr. Moss abstaining. Number 4 is the ordinance to authorize A, the acquisition of an agricultural land preservation easement from Melvin H. Eaton II, and B, the issuance by the city of its contract obligation in the maximum principal amount of $238,784, and C, to transfer funds to purchase U.S. Treasury bond strips, with Mr. Moss voting no. And number 5, the ordinance is to amend A, Section 1.3 and 1-30 of the Stormwater Management Ordinance Appendix D regarding the Stormwater Appeals Board, and B, Section 1.2 of the Public Works Design Standards Manual regarding the variances deferred from September 7th, 2021, and we defer that to January 18th. Number 6, ordinances to extend the date for satisfying the conditions regard A, the closing 1/2 of unimproved unnamed alley adjacent to the rear of 837 South Atlantic Avenue in Croatan, and B, closing Lake Avenue, Oak Street, and the portions of Locust Crescent and Ellis Avenue. Number 7, the ordinance to authorize temporary encroachments into a portion of city-owned A, property known as Treasure Canal located in the rear of 2044 Windward Shore Drive, regard to construct and maintain the bulkhead, riprap, timber pier, boat lift, and roof structure. And B, property located at the rear of 2460 Entrada Drive, regard to construct and maintain timber, bulkhead, wharf, and boat lift. Number 8, ordinance to accept and appropriate A, $78,004 from the Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant, and B, $220,000 from the Eastern Virginia Medical School to the FY 2021-22 Parks and Recreation operating budget to provide child care for financially challenged families. And C, $1,882,004 from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management to the FY 2021-22 Emergency Management Operating Budget regard flood mitigation assistance of qualifying residential properties. And number 9, an ordinance to transfer A, $250,000 to the capital project number 100574, the court's technology systems sustainment regarding replacement of the paging system in court buildings, and B, $150,000 to the court, to the capital project 100076, Acela sustainment regarding Acela upgrades.
Open a public hearing on planning.
Let's see. Number 3, the Virginia Beach Distilling LLC regarding Oceana Crossings LLC for a conditional use permit regarding a craft distillery at 1375 Oceana Boulevard, Unit 142, District 6 Beach. Number 4, Sue W. Kent for the conditional use permit regarding a short-term rental with 901 Pacific Avenue, Unit D, District 6 Beach. And number 5, Peter Yordanov Popov for a conditional use permit regarding a short-term rental at 927 Pacific Avenue, Unit A, District 6 Beach.
Okay, motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? Vote is open for the consent agenda.
By a vote of 10-0, you have approved the consent agenda as read by Vice Mayor Wilson, noting Mr. Moss's abstention vote and nay vote.
Can I explain my?
No, you sure can, John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I don't have to recuse myself when it's an open public session, but if this were an executive session discussion, I have removed myself when Dominion Energy is present, because everybody can hear what I say right here. But more importantly, I do receive investment income in excess of the state law threshold for a conflict of interest. I've abstained, and I have a letter on file with the city clerk.
Okay, thank you. All right. Votes.
It's already, you
Yes,
already.
we did it already. Okay, moving on. Resolution to adopt the city's 2022 legislative agenda.
We have 3 speakers. The first speaker is Barbara Messner. After Ms. Messner is Melissa Lucasen. This is K1.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you. Okay, K1. And I want to note when I spoke on the 10-0, y'all are all responsible, for all the problems that occur when you approve these industrial locations, in residential and business districts. 10-0. And Ms. Henley came out, and Ms. Wooten came out and looked at that area and the surrounding areas. Ms. Henley, you did vote no the first time. But one vote and one, the token votes don't matter, but I do appreciate because you actually spoke on the reasons. Okay, the legislative agenda. Yeah. We should be more involved in this. The pandemic, These meetings, we don't have enough notice, and you're not having them at the convention center. Okay, so there are other speakers. I'm going to let them speak.
The next speaker is Melissa Lucasen. And after Miss Lucasen is Lindsay Nathaniel. She left. Okay, thank you.
Welcome back.
Okay. Hello, my name is Melissa Lucasen, and I'm here to support every proposal submitted by Councilman Aaron Rouse for the 2022 legislative agenda, specifically city employees. Councilman Rouse is doing what he's elected to do. He listens and acts, even in the face of opposition. Ideas for change are often met with resistance, especially by people who are uncomfortable with change or deem it a risk to their economic or social interest. The pressures from those uninterested in effectuating change can convince change makers to abandon their pursuits that could improve the lives of the underserved in the community. Those ideas get tossed in a desk drawer where it dies, never being brought to light. By presenting these ideas to the public, citizens get to see who is voting against progress and who is voting for the people. In August, after a short deliberation, you appointed Rocky Holcomb to the vacant Kempsville seat. I was angry at the false public display of impartiality and that he was a city employee. When faced with public backlash, Rocky made his position clear on restricting city employees serving on city council when he said, "I hope it's the will of this body to reject this." Well, Rocky, I had hoped that this body's will was to reject you and appoint one of the more qualified women in your seat. But here you sit. Wavy 10 quoted Rocky saying, "We talk about diversity. We need to talk about diversity on council, and diversity is not just gender or race or sexual orientation. It's also gender of experience and gender of workplace history and workplace knowledge. Don't go after the 17,000 plus city employees and school board employees that may aspire to run one day and have a voice one day. Don't hold them down and disenfranchise them." That's a quote. Oh, the irony of a conservative white man postulating concern about diversity on council because this change directly affects his self-interest. Mr. Holcomb is well within his right to retire after 30 years of service to the Sheriff's Department, which thank you for. Rocky, if you cared about diversity on council, maybe withdrawing your application for the Kempsville seat, sacrificing your political ambitions to lift up 2 women with more community support than you would have been a great start. But the culture of law enforcement is that you think that the power and impunity you stroll through life with gives you the audacity to believe you are the most qualified to be a decision maker for this city, and it doesn't. Unfortunately, you are collecting 2 cities from the taxpayers, and abstaining from voting does not mean you aren't influencing the votes of other council members. If the 17,000 employees want to run for public office, they can just use their work experience to work. They can use their work experience to work for a privately owned business in the city. Mistakenly, I thought council would do the right thing in my home district of Lynn Haven. We were presented with 2 very qualified, respected women candidates with a lot of support from a wide range of local community leaders and residents. The few Linwood Branch supporters included former Mayor Will Sessoms and a local family that Mr. Branch has assisted through economic hard times. A conservative, wealthy hotel owner parades a family around to put his good deeds on display for everyone to see.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Shameful and transparent. Thank you, Mr. Rouse, for all the work you're doing.
That's all the speakers, sir.
Okie dokie. Okay, do we have a motion on this?
Mr. Mayor, I have a
Mr.
motion.
Holcomb.
I'd like to make a motion to remove Section 1, Number 1, and Section 3, Number 8, and I'll speak to the measure at the appropriate time.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, is there a motion then to vote on the package with
Would
those
he-
absent?
Would
or-
you repeat that again? It's 1-1?
Section 1, Number 1, and Section 3, Number 8.
And I seconded.
Okay. Any other discussion on that?
I have discussion, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
please, Mr. Rouse.
Thank you. On Section 1, imposed term limits on local governing bodies, I think we've established from a point of parliamentary standpoint that it's up to the General Assembly to change that constitutional state legislation to change that. But the term limits discussion is not far from this body, especially one that is going to a new elective system, voting system coming up soon, hopefully very soon. But it's a discussion that we as this body did not have. It's a discussion that we continue to evade. So only one way to get that into the public so you can have public comment on is to bring that up through the legislative agenda. this is from the concerns that I've heard from you all about term limits and how that would affect this body and making sure that there is diversity on this council and that everybody has a voice and making sure that this body reflects our city that's full of diversity. And so while this body is not directly responsible for changing or affecting term limits, I am in support of, and I was hopeful that this body would be in support of term limits. On the second, section 3 is number 8, restrict candidates for election or appointment to mayor or member of the city council. Again, let me state for the record, this isn't personal. It never was. And for a member of this body to think it was personal, I think a piece of humble pie is in order here. Because this isn't about me. It's not about Mr. Holcomb. It's about your city. It's about the fact that we work for you, the public. Tonight we heard transparency, we heard about trust, and we've heard about integrity. And in order to restore that integrity into our local government, this is a piece of legislation that I strongly support. But again, that support comes from you, the public, that I've heard from. I think Mr. Moss, Mr. Tower, and I, we all co-signed another piece of legislation that we're going to talk about soon, about the appointment process. So again, that's appointment process. It's a process that you all, the public, has to take direct stake in. You have to be involved in to make sure we can change that process, because ultimately it's you who we are responsible to. This isn't about Mr. Holcomb appointment to Kentville. This is about the public, making sure that there is a fair process, that if there is a council member on this board that resigns or steps away without finishing their term, that you, the public, can elect and appoint someone in this position, not these council members who many of them have served together for quite some time. And that's not a jab, that's just the facts of the matter here. We have a seasoned council who've been around, as was stated, since a couple of them since before I was born. That's just the facts of the matter here. So again, so when we talk about the integrity of local office, this is not personal. This is not about any one person serving, because we all make sacrifices to be up here, believe it or not, and we all take heat that comes with sitting in this seat. This is about doing the right thing for our city, for our community, and moving our city forward. And to me, that's why I stand behind this legislation. But I'm also open to, if there's a better process, I can tell you right now, I don't have all the answers. I do not. And so if there's a better process in getting something passed or legislated, I am open to it. If we have to put this matter to a referendum to ask the public, I am open to it. Because ultimately, you elected me here. And I will continue to answer to your voice, respond to you all in every single matter. It's never about me. And again, I just want to speak to those matters. And thank you for the people who showed up to speak about this tonight. Thank you, Ms. Melissa, as well. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Moss.
Well, I agree with one thing with my good colleague, and I'll talk about that in a minute, Councilman Rouse. But on imposing limits, term limits any place, I think term limits empower the bureaucracy, because then the corporate knowledge and the corporate wisdom is only resident in the bureaucracy. And your best defense against the insatiable appetite of government for your money is people who, I don't say everybody, but the public ultimately controls that, but there's something to be said for people over time who know how we got here and know all how we do. But the voters in the end have the right to impose term limits at any time. Believe me, I've been elected, unelected, reelected, so I guess you could say I've been term limited several times. And I think probably sometimes, like Steve Jobs said, the best thing ever happened to him was getting fired from Apple and starting Pixar. He made more money off of that than he did off Apple. So there's something to be said for the public sending us home occasionally, and that's your right, and the district system will make that a little easier. But with regard to this, I was a government employee for 42 years in the federal service. You cannot run for Congress or the U.S. Senate and be an employee. You can't even run. So why? It's an inherent appearance, and it's a conflict of interest. Now, we had such a resolution. I remember sponsoring along with 6 council members and Louis Jones, and I think Barbara at the same time. We had a resolution that statutorily for our city made that possible. The General Assembly had other things, and they changed it and overrode our thing. But I think and I'm not in favor of doing it as part of our legislative package, but I'm going to join Councilman Rouse and challenge my colleagues that when we put a resolution to put this on the ballot in November, because I know the public has a much stronger voice than we do, and they're less interested in our self-interest. And I think, from what I tell, this will be overwhelmingly supported. But let's find out where the public stands, and when they make their voice heard, and about 6 of us were running for elections, so you can take strong positions on this. When you're running, we'll see where the public is, and then come our assembly package, we will do the will of the people, which I'm certain is not our self-preservation of our appointing, of serving. I just think it's not right. I'm not saying, and it's not about a person. I lived this my whole life. It's just phenomenal that even it happens, and I think we have to, I don't know all the legislative history up in Richmond, but I know some of it has to do with small towns, and they can't find enough people to run. But we're 450-something thousand people. We have plenty of people willing to do these things, and there's a better way than having to reach out to city employees, whether partially paid or wholly paid by us. I just think there's an appearance of a conflict of interest, and I think we can do better than that. But I do think we should let the people tell us what they want, because I agree with Ms. Henley. How we get elected is the province of the voters. And I will take that same position on an item I put forth, and I'll bring that forth on the ballot as well, to change how we elect vacancies. And certainly with a 10-district system, I don't think we're going to be having so many people leaving here voluntarily that that's going to be an onerous burden. But the House of Congress does it in 60 days, they have a special election. The House of Delegates does it in 60 days and have a special election. And by golly, the city of Virginia Beach can hold a special election in 60 days. And I'm certain that I'd rather have the politics of the voters rather than the politics of the council picking who represents them. And I think we'll let the voters decide. And I hope everybody who's up here will be endorsing that referendum decision on the ballot. There'll only be 3 candidates, there'll only be 2 questions, there'll only be 5 things, so I don't think it's going to be overwhelming, and there'll be plenty of opportunity for all of us to educate, but I think what's going to happen is the public's going to educate us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, Mr. Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. And I agree with Councilman Moss. We take it to a referendum and let the people speak on it. But just like Councilman Rouse, I've heard a lot of comment too. And my question is, and I made a few notes here, is what does this say and mean to our city staff? When we talk about diversity and inclusion, I just so happen to be a deputy sheriff. And to disenfranchise any of our city employees, what does this say to our staff? This is something we should think about, and we should really take a look at this. We talk about a workforce we are trying to rebuild. What does this say to the 17,000 plus employees that may want to get on the ballot and run for office? Are we saying that you're only good enough to protect us and keep our city running? Are you only good enough to take orders? Are they only good enough for that? Should they not be eligible to get their name on the ballot and let the voters decide if they can sit in one of these positions? Are we going to overlook them, the 17,000 plus employees? Should we overlook a qualified candidate just because they work for the city? Just because they didn't have another career, their career was here as a city worker, where they showed their public service and dedication to our city? So I just think it's a bad message we send to our 17,000 plus city employees and school board employees. And I think that if we take it to a referendum and let the people speak on it, that's the best course of action. And it's kind of hard for me to believe that it's not directed at me. And I hope it's not, because Mr. Rouse is certainly my friend. I've known him for quite a while. And I think this has kind of put a little bit of a problem between us. And I certainly want to bury that hatchet if there's one out there, because it just seems strange that now that I'm on this body, now this came about. So I don't want to be up here beefing with Councilman Rouse, and I know he doesn't want to beef with me, but I think that we owe it to our city employees to say, Yes, if you want to do this, you can. You just have to get on the ballot. How many times do we hear members of this council have to abstain from a vote from a conflict of interest? It happens a lot. And I can promise you that it's going to continue to happen. What do we say? That if you own property in Virginia Beach and there's a tax increase, you shouldn't be voting, you can't run for council? No. I think it's my opinion this body should be made up of, like Councilman Rouse said, all of our citizens. And it just so happens that all of our citizens are city employees too. So I hope that we can take this to a referendum and let the good people of this city speak on this. And Mr. Mayor and members of council, that's it for me.
Okay, Mr. Rouse, Mr. Moss.
I just, in response, I just hope you all witness what we're talking about tonight. You have one issue, you have two different perspectives, but I want you to see the civil discourse that's between us. We have to be able to talk about issues we do not agree on, that we see have different perspectives on, and may have different approaches on. But at the end of the day, he's a councilman, he's a Virginia Beach citizen, he's a civil servant within our community, serving in our sheriff's offices, doing a great job for 20-some years as well. And we have to be able to talk about these issues and debate those issues as well. And at the end of the day, take it to the people. So I hope you all recognize that yes, we don't agree, we have different perspectives as well, but in order to move progress along, and progress at times can be incremental, you have to have those conversations, those debates, and have that discourse. And so on that note, just wanted to thank Mr. Holcomb for his perspective as well, and I look forward to continue working with this body on everything we do, but I will continue to be outspoken representative of the people. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moss.
I would just, in keeping with the remarks that I made, I would like to amend the motion of my colleague and good friend here, who I called early on in the process to serve with us, to add 2A to the items removed, consistent with my remarks. That's the one about how we fill a vacant position, because I think that wasn't, some people were concerned that we were doing that without a voter thing, but I will be bringing that back along with Councilman Rouse's thing to put on the ballot, and I think that's a better way of dealing with that. And I have to say, in my 42 years of service with men in uniform, I never met any of them that felt that the Congress and the U.S. Senate didn't appreciate their service, the fact that they were excluded from serving, whether they were civilian or military. I never felt that they felt left out or unappreciated. But I understand that other levels of government could, but I never ran into that during my 42 years of service.
So am I understanding that your motion is to tack on the process for filling vacancies?
He said he was removing 1-1 and 3-8, was that correct? I just would
And
like to
2A.
include 2A.
Put on that separately.
We have speakers signed up on
Okay.
2A.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I was just
Okay.
trying to get to a consensus earlier. I apologize.
We talking about 2-2? What am I?
No,
We're voting on that separately.
Okay, so at this point, why don't we go ahead and just vote on, okay, we have a motion, for approval minus, the 2.
Can I just get clarification? When I heard the motion, it was to remove item section 1, number 1, and section 3, number 8.
That's correct.
I heard a motion to remove that, not to approve the legislative, so I just need to make sure I'm clear.
It's a motion
Approve the
to-
legislative.
That's what I was trying to,
Okay.
It's
Could
a
you,
motion to approve, but remove
yeah,
1-1.
could you make it the motion
3-8.
to approve with the 2 exceptions, Rocky?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the exception of section 1 and section 1, number 1, and section 3, number 8.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? Vote is
I'm
open.
looking to the attorney.
So,
Okay.
Mark, section 1 is to impose term limits.
Section 1 is part of the legislative agenda. It's section 2 that has the separate resolution
That
attached.
they're not voting on right now.
And they're not voting on that right now,
Correct.
so I think the motion as made is fine.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, vote's open.
Confusing.
Mr. Tower, may I have your vote, please?
I'll just bring it back.
By a vote of 9-1, you have approved the legislative agenda with removing section 1, number 1, and section 3, number 8.
Okay, thank you all very much. I guess now we're moving on to number 2, which is the request that the General Assembly amend the city charter, process of filling vacancies, and the member of City Council and Mayor.
We have 2 speakers. Ms. Messner is the first speaker. I believe Ms. Lucas has left, so just Ms. Messner.
Good evening, Mr. Adams.
Good evening, Ms. Messner.
I mean, just musical chairs. Oh God, this place is unbelievable. People can't sit through a whole meeting. Okay.
Sometimes our meetings drag on a little bit.
We've been here since 2 o'clock.
Maybe you shouldn't put so many things on the meetings and,
We're doing the city's business, Mrs. Messner.
oh, what city? What, who, which people? Sorry. Okay, all right, this brings up the entire voting thing. We don't need any more ballots. Look at this thing. You spent a fortune on this bond referendum. We don't need a referendum. The people speak to you all the time. You don't listen. We don't need other things. Look at the ballot, a quarter of a page for the bond referendum. You know, they're not binding. Okay, and as far as, you know, the outrage over, you know, being able to, you know, be in a department, you know, under fire right now, excuse the pun, and be on city council, it is a conflict. And it's a conflict for Mr. Branch, who I've known for a very long time. It's a conflict for a lot of you. Even Mr. Rouse, you know, you were funded by people in the resort industry. And the other candidates, council picked the people that, you know, for appointments. Ross Hammond, Ron Villanueva's family member or relative. Diversity has nothing to do with qualifications. You can't just put numbers and faces that some people want to see. Like I said, Miss Wooten and Mr. Rouse, I don't judge you by your color. I judge you by how you vote and whether or not you respond. And we need qualified people, not just numbers. Thank you.
That's all the speakers. The other speaker, Ms. Lucas, and it doesn't appear to still be in the chamber.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, you know, Mr. Moss, would you like to?
I'm going to hope I make the right motion. I'm going to try to keep it in tenor with my just conversation, and I think trying to move us along, and then so that Mr. Rouse and I can come back here after the new year with our ballot question and look for tremendous support across the board for both those issues that let the people speak. But I guess the right motion would be not indefinitely defer, but to withdraw. Would that be appropriate? I'm trying to figure out the motion I need to make that we don't act on it, because I'm not asking it be included. So I guess the motion would be not to include it in the legislative package. And, you know, because I got the read from there were some people among us that didn't feel comfortable in that the voters haven't spoken first of amending our charter, and I respect that. All I'm asking is that when the time comes, that those very same people would be endorsing, asking the people to make that choice so that we could go back. And I don't, since the House of Delegates will be running every year for 3 years, and we'll be running ourselves, I don't think that a delay is going to be prejudicial to the long-term reform. So I would move that it not be included in this year's legislative package, and that I'm asking, separate from the motion, that the city attorney prepare both Councilmember Rouse with his permission on relative to the conflict of interest city employees serving, and this question be composed as a ballot question for us to review at a later date.
Should we just, a motion to table then?
Well, table can come back at any time, so I think a motion not to include it is a more definitive motion.
Right, just stop there. A motion not to include it, period.
Right, but I can ask the
Yeah, you
staff as
can
part of
ask
my
them. Yeah,
discussion to prepare that
sure.
about, which
Yeah.
is what I'm doing. It's
Yeah,
separate from the motion, but I'm asking the staff to
Okay.
prepare that.
Okay, so then I'll
Motion
second.
to withdraw then?
not to be
motion not
included.
Yeah.
Mr. Moss's motion is clear, is clear.
Okay.
It's fine.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay, there we go.
Mr. Tower and Ms. Blute, may I have your votes?
Not difficult.
Now we're on to.
But I'll be back.
By a vote of 10 to 0, you have approved the motion to not include item 2A in the legislative package.
Madam Clerk, was there any other items that?
7C.
7C. Okay, the right of, the right-of-way for Sam Fiddler Road adjacent to 2445 Sam Fiddler Road, retain 12 wood pile posts.
And this has been discussed to defer till December the 7th. Ms. Messner? And then
So,
Mr. Finley?
Mr. Finley was okay with it? being
I'm not
deferred?
sure, he didn't check in with us, but
Okay.
so Ms. Messner's the first speaker.
Can I have a question before we move that? I'm going to go back. I thought we had a motion to remove 2 items from the legislative package. Is that not correct?
We did.
And we had a motion not to include something in the legislative package.
That is correct.
I don't recall a vote to actually approve the remaining part of the legislative package.
Yeah, we did.
That
We did?
first motion was amended to approve
Oh, I
with the
didn't hear
removal
that.
of the other
I
two.
recommended that he include the.
Okay, I just missed
yeah.
that. Thank you.
Ms. Messner?
Thought I was listening, but apparently not.
This is for Ordinance and Resolution 7C,
That's it.
temporary encroachment on Sam Fiddler Road. And it's to defer till December 7th, ma'am.
Okay. Hard to remember everything I want to bring up because there's so many issues, but I think it's really important for everyone to know that the city attorneys work for city council. They don't work for us, and they give opinions for the council. And the Commonwealth attorney, who also has conflicts, gives legal opinions, and then Mark Herring for a little bit longer. Okay, you said 7C, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, right away known as Sam Fiddler Road. Okay. You know, the problems for the Croatan, the Sandbridge area have been ongoing, you know, as far back as when Don Weeks was on council. And all these event houses. I mean, there's too many strangers, too much. It's like a hotel industry of giant houses. And I think there's all these additional parking that you have because there were problems with people parking there. Like I said, I just oppose the fact that there's too many things on the agenda, which you think is really funny, Mr. Dyer, and there's not enough time. I think it was Friday after 5 o'clock that we got the full 514 or 516 page agenda. And, you know, most people who might come are at the school board. That probably will be going on till 1 o'clock in the morning, who knows? Okay, that's it.
Yes, ma'am. Robert Finley, I'm not sure if he's here or not. He did not check in with us, although he did sign up. That's the applicant, Ms. Finley.
That's it?
That's all the speakers.
My motion is to defer this until December 7th.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Vote is open. Okay.
Go ahead and close it, Terry. He stepped out. By a vote of 9 to 0, you have approved this application be deferred till December the 7th.
Oh.
Mr. Rouse having stepped out.
Okie dokie. Now, moving on to the last planning item, it would be number 2, Schaefer Construction, Joe P. Covington Jr., Janet Covington, B. Harrison, James III, Karen Bonnie Fleming, and Julie Bonnie Crockett Ray, conditional use permit automobile service station at 152 Newton Road and 5790 Princess Anne Road in Kempsville.
Mayor, you skipped over number 1. I'm not sure if you meant to.
Development Authority.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, okay.
I think Okay, I think Mr.
It-
Moss.
That was deferred.
I pulled it.
No, it was pulled.
No, we pulled it.
I know, we did, I know.
We pulled it because
Okay,
we wanted to
yeah.
hear it.
This is one.
Yeah, so that was a thing, just.
So we do have one speaker, Barbara Messner. Ms. Messner? This is for the first planning item.
We wanted to pull it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Carolyn. But that's right.
Okay.
Thank
Okay, Virginia Beach Economic Development Authority. Now, y'all switched again. Mr. Taylor from Economic Development Authority is also a city manager. I mean, this is just unbelievable. I brought up in 2018 because the Economic Development Authority creates debt. You transfer city property, you know, to your development authority. And then Lisa Murphy works for Wilcox Savage. I mean, everything is just a convoluted mess. And this brings up the recall. It's like, you don't recall one person when it's an octopus and you just take off one tentacle. You know, if everyone is guilty of something, then, you know, but nobody wants to do anything except, you know, on the school board. Okay, change of zoning. Why do we have zoning? Why do we have permits if you're just gonna keep changing and amending things and making deals for developers? Portion of Corporate Landing Business Park. Business, not industrial. Business park. You know, I've attended as many meetings as I can. It doesn't go anywhere, and they don't notify everyone that's affected. You don't have to live next door to the property to be affected. Okay, you're helping private industry, and we have traffic, we have crime, we have nonstop construction. You keep adding to the problems of flooding and crime. So I'm in opposition. Okay, that's it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
All the
thank you.
speakers.
Hey, any other speakers?
That's all the speakers, sir.
Okay, this is item 1 to defer, correct? Mr. Moss?
Here is, I am not, last to be fooled, I'm not in favor of deferral, and I'm going to explain to you why. Maybe my colleagues will come to a different conclusion. This has been a long journey, that our path, I like that we've been on. It came as it was proposed. It was a draft. Anyone who relies on a draft to make their business plan is taking risk, because there's no guarantee how this body will act. So that's a risk they take unto themselves. Now, when we said that wasn't the direction we were going to take, we did go out and contact all the property owners, each little house that's there, the businesses. We did all the things that people on the peripheral could be, and they were notified. Then we came back, and we had some discussion, and then there was, I forget the reason why we moved it down kicked the can down the road, just another meeting, which is where we're at. So this has been underway, at least four formal sessions has passed, I think, since this first started. So now we're saying because one person or business was looking and relied upon a draft plan where they assumed the risk of that, and where we had notified people many times that we were going to stay with the status quo, which is what we're doing. We're not changing the status quo. We're just affirming we're not going to change it, but yet we're saying because a person. So unless we are truly going to change the standard a week from now, which I didn't get a lot of indication that that's where we were headed, I don't see what the value added is of deferring the sandwich that we've eaten at least 4 meetings and eating it for a 5th time next Tuesday. So I think we should be able to act, because I think there's been adequate public notice, adequate council discussion. Unless a majority are now willing to say we're going to go back and make those changes, what is the value added of deferring a decision that we still plan to make the following Tuesday? I'm open to someone else making it, but Mr. Mayor, I did want to explain why I believe you always talk about getting to yes and acting expeditiously. My point is here, what's going to change by next Tuesday? And if I read right, nothing. So why are we deferring? So I would make a motion to approve.
I second.
Okay, is that a,
To approve the,
yeah,
the
okay.
item versus
Is that the
defer.
primary motion?
Yes.
Seconded.
Okay, Mrs. Henley, any comment?
No. Said fine.
So-
Okay, yeah.
Before you do that, I think Taylor Adams needs to come up here and explain why. I don't think everybody there was some calls that were made because of Forbes Candy. Forbes Candy, to me, is Virginia Beach. They've been here for 90 years. And I guess Taylor could explain a lot better. If we don't delay this, we're going to lose Forbes Candy. Is that correct?
So I can never speculate on the ultimate decision that a business will make. What I can say is, going into last weekend, we received a request from representatives of the local business to initially the request was to move forward with the amended proffers as they were first presented, Councilmember Moss, as you said, 4 meetings ago, give or take. We were resistant to that for the reasons that Councilmember Moss just mentioned. My immediate response was to basically, as we have available land behind this parcel, to utilize a larger parcel to accommodate the developer to maintain the setbacks consistent with the notice that had been given to date. The representatives of the company indicated they did look at that and that it does not work for them. And so they have, and I understand, reached out to some of you. They have also expressed interest in a deferral to us while we continue to research this. I will apologize for the suddenness of this. What I can tell you is, because this conversation has gone on through the weekend, I do not have an answer one way or the other here. I also can't tell you definitively what would happen with the company. I can tell you that is a comment that has been made to me informally on behalf of their representatives, but I cannot say that definitively that is what would happen.
Yes, Mr. Rouse.
Just so I understand this, so we've been down this pathway. So we were going to amend the proffers, but then we didn't amend the proffers. We kept them the same, and then what? So Forbes come and said now what? They didn't like the original proffers, or they liked the amendment? Because I'm not.
So the amended proffer was part of a larger package to sort of to consolidate and update the proffers within corporate landing to be consistent with decisions that had been made throughout the last 35 years of developing in the park. One of those changes that came forward, and those were not all dependent on setbacks. Many of those were related to design standards that has changed over the park in the last 35 years. One of the pieces of which there was not objection, but just the request to do more thorough outreach, were the amendment of setbacks relating to the adjoining residential uses, and in this case along General Booth Boulevard. Through conversation with council, we and just your consideration here, I subsequently requested that we move forward with the changes to the design criteria that were consistent with changes we had made, and that we leave the setbacks alone, because that was that appeared to be the will of the body at the time. That said, it appears that request is what has created this situation, and so I will apologize for not being aware of the impact that my request to you would have had on this business independently, but yes, we interpreted that to be your will at the time. Subsequently, this request has come forward, and this is me not having an answer for you in the present, just given how quickly this has come through.
So Because while I agree with Mr. Moss's sentiment about moving things along, my question to you is, if we deferred this for a week, what's the difference?
So if this were deferred, it would create a situation where we would have to, one, come up with a solution, which which could involve the company asking us to basically go back to the original request to amend the proffer, which, to Councilmember Moss's point, would require us to restart public notice in the area again, and it would look somewhat inconsistent. That said, I can't stand here and ask you definitively to do that tonight because I need a little more time with this one myself. But Councilmember, or excuse me, Vice Mayor, to your point, obviously, you're absolutely right. We are talking about a company that has operated in our community for the better part of a century. That's an important part of the fabric of our community and our business community in particular. And we would make every effort to retain that company, of course.
It's a company I really would like to make sure we do everything we can to keep them here. I would hate to see us lose a company that I've known since I was a child.
On that note,
That's a long time ago.
on that note, then I mean, obviously, I would like to afford them or you a week to work this out. I think, that would be the least we can do with a company that's been here for quite some time. But I'm also, I share Mr. Moss's sentiments, but I want to make sure we do everything we can to keep a company that's been a staple within our community for quite some time.
Are you withdrawing your second?
I'm withdrawing.
Okay,
Well,
Ms. Henley?
Yes, ma'am.
I would just say, I came across in the last few days the original great lengths we went to when we developed Corporate Landing as a business park, and we had quite a lot of communication with all of the residential neighborhoods out there because we were putting this industrial park in the middle of what was otherwise a residential corridor. And, we had sort of prided ourselves on the design standards of that park all these years and the way it worked. The setbacks were not that terrible. I mean, 75 feet, that's
Yes, ma'am.
that's not a lot. But to now reduce it to 25 feet, 25 feet's not very far. Was it far as from you to me right now?
Yes, ma'am. Give or take.
That's pretty close for residents. And, of course, now we have gone to all the effort of sending cards out to everybody there saying that we were leaving the setbacks the way they were. So it's unfortunate that it's taken this thing. And of course, Forbes Candy has been around a long time, but I don't know, it puts us in a real dilemma to say we're going to even change our standards like that for one company. What impact does it have on a neighborhood? And then, of course, General Booth was always supposed to be sort of a residential corridor. But anyway, it's unfortunate. I tell you what, it seems like it's one thing after the other with the Development Authority lately. I'm kind of losing my faith.
So, so Ms. Henley, on this one, what I'll say is this one, I'll take responsibility for this one. I have an obligation to know how many deals my team are working at. Not to make, it's one of the things that we're blessed that our economy is as active and growing as quickly as it is right now. But this is where I make an effort to stay connected to all of the deals that we are working. I missed this portion of this one. If I had recognized the impact that this setback had on this specific project, I would have obviously mentioned that to this body much earlier. That said, I just didn't know until last weekend, and so I'll take responsibility for that. I would like to offer one clarifying comment just from a moment ago. I'm not an employee of the Virginia Beach Development Authority. I work exclusively for your city manager. That's in many of the neighboring jurisdictions. The Director of Economic Development is the Executive Director of the Development Authority. I am not their Executive Director. I work exclusively for the manager and for you. And so just wanted to offer that quick clarification for the public.
If I can make a suggestion, I think in terms of clarity and fairness, you know, to give, you know, folks the input and, you know, I think a week deferral
Well, I think, did you say December 7th?
or December 7th.
So we would need time to, I mean, so we need a, I'm happy to come back and report in a week, but if we're deferring this, I do need a little time to get with my team and also get with the company's representatives to find out just exactly what our options are here before I would come back and ask for specific
You
action.
can give us an interim update next week, just
I
to
can
let
do
you
that
know
next
how
Do
it's
you want
going.
to give us a date, or do you want to do an indefinite deferral?
Better be indefinitely, because if we have to go notifying all of the
Yeah,
neighborhood,
I really-
that's gonna take a while.
So I would concur with Ms. Henley. I'd like to come back when it's ready this time, when we know that
Do
it's
an
ready.
indefinite deferral.
Okay.
But my goal would be to be back in front of you quickly.
So if it's indefinite deferral, don't we have to re-advertise, Mark?
It would have to be re-advertised, new sign, everything else.
So can we go with December 7th then? I mean, I'm happy to update next week, and I'll even know where we
Yeah,
want.
Mr. Stiles.
You don't want it to be next week anyway.
That's right,
Because
yeah.
if there is any, and I understood Mr. Moss's comment, but if there is any desire to change that proffer agreement again, that has to be in the office of the planning director 10 days before
I hear you.
you vote.
Got it.
So you can't, if you're deferring it, it's because there's some chance you may consider that. You couldn't consider that next week.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah, so would it have deferral to the 7th and then just an update next week? Is that fair? Was somebody, we had a motion on the table. Does anybody that want to second that at this point? Or does somebody make a motion to?
What's the motion on the table?
I'll withdraw my motion. Obviously, the majority of the body's in a different direction. I'll just be voting no.
Thank you, John.
I move that we defer till December 7th.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? The vote is open.
By a vote of 9-1 with Mr. Moss's nay vote, you have deferred this item till December 7th.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, there are no appointments today. Is there any
We have
unfinished?
another item, sir.
What was that?
Number
Oh,
two.
my goodness. Sorry about
I
that.
know you're eager, Mr. Mayor, but
Uh,
Mr. Nutter said he's waited this long, he has to get the prize.
Oh, the Schaefer, okay. Yeah, my apologies.
Don't you worry.
Okay, Schaefer Construction.
Oh, look who's here.
Hey, how are you? Okay, I read it before.
That's okay. Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much. For the record, my name's R.J. Nutter, represent the applicant. I'll tell you a couple things about this. I'll try to be quick, because you've had a long night, a lot of speakers. This application came to you, it's property zone B2. It's at the intersection of Newtown Road. It was previously a gas station, and so the client in this case, the developer for 7-Eleven, has an option on the property to develop it for 7-Eleven. Started working with staff in terms of how this property be oriented. Because it's in an SGA, the building was inverted so that the back of the building faces the intersection there, and the rest of the building faces inward. So, and one of the biggest issues we had in this had to do with access. And Mr. Moss, I know you've kind of looked into this access issue, and so I'm happy to tell you, I think we've come to a resolution on the access issue. So whereby, and if you have, this is perfect. Thank you very much. Whoever put this up, thanks. I'm not sure who did it. Why? Thank you. At any rate, the access we had previously, let's see if this works. Well, anyway, there, you see at the top of the triangle there, there's an access way. And that cuts across, in this case, my client's property, but there's a perpetual easement that allows the people in the condominiums behind it, those are not residential condominiums, they're business condominiums, that allows access across their property into their condominium project. One of the earlier versions of this plan cut off their access way. That was wrong. And staff wanted us then in turn to say, well, why can't you join the access ways? Well, that violated their rights, and so we had to go back to our client to agree. So bottom line is, now we're guaranteeing the access way for the condominium stays in place. We're also guaranteeing with this site plan that we don't have any connection to that access way, which also was very important. So, and finally, another important component for the neighborhood, for the condominium association, was that we build, even though it's B2 against B2, that we build a fence and landscaping along that border, which we've done. So, as a result of that, I'm happy to tell you that we talked with the majority of the board and got an email from them today saying that that's okay. And so there's still people here today. They have some other objections, but I did want to tell you the biggest concern had been the access way, and we're preserving that as we had no right to disturb it. So we're not doing anything except what we should have done in the first place.
Thank you, Mr. Nutter.
My pleasure. If you don't mind.
You're fine, yes, sir.
Hand it to that guy right there. He makes way more money than I.
Thank you. Thank you.
And, so anyway, so I'll happy to answer any questions, but I think that's the kind of the meat of the situation for you. I'm happy to tell you I think it's been worked out, and we appreciate that. And there are 14 condominium unit owners in there. I think this is the majority of them, and the chairman, what I understand, is the head of their condo association.
Okay, thank you for that.
My
Appreciate it.
The next speaker is Barbara Messner. After Ms. Messner is Donna Turner.
I'm waiting for the
Ms. Messner,
sidebars.
go
I'm
ahead.
waiting for the sidebars.
Time's
You know, some of this affects these people. Okay, now, all of this, so are you the mayor right now, Miss Wilson, since Mr. Dyer's not here? Okay. Anyway, all this changing around, there's been lots of people here opposing this. R.J. Nutter has conflicts, and the whole thing of talking about, just certain neighborhoods, everything that goes on in these corridors affects the entire city. Look at that. It's on, and you can hardly even take a picture of it sideways. That's why when you're at the convention center, you have a giant display right here and everyone can see it. But I'm opposed to what's going on. I mean, driving past Green Flash, all these places, everything is, contributing to traffic, crime, flooding. I mean, it's almost a joke to have the bond referendum, to have temporary patches for 95 years and to keep adding to the problem. But this one's Schaefer's in Kempsville, and then the other one, service stations everywhere. Most of them are connected to, you build them for somebody else and then they're part of 7-Elevens.
Donna Turner. Ms.
Good
Turner,
evening and welcome.
I just want to confirm that you have 10 minutes. You are representing a group, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I don't need 10.
But you have it if you need it. Thank you.
We love you.
I knew I'd get a point or two for that. So good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I am Donna Speller Turner, and I am representing the Newtown Professional Park Owners Association. We're a Virginia condominium, so we have a board of directors. We have, I'm happy to say, we have reached an acceptable agreement with Schaefer Construction, just as was reported. And we actually appreciated the opportunity to engage in what we had to do to design a reasonable solution to this. There was no fighting. Well, there was some fighting, but it was just a little bit. But we are okay with how this turned out. The one thing that we would like to say, well, two things. One is that there are a few other owners here with us tonight. We think it's important that as owners, we participate in the process. And so if I could just ask them to just stand up real quick. We do have other owners here. The other thing I wanted to say is that the Newtown Professional Park are all small businesses. And that's a really important part of the Virginia Beach economy. And as you know, the number of small businesses is growing, thank goodness, and we feel like we are making a significant contribution. And we, to acquaint the council with our small business park, I was asked to put together a small package and share some information about a few of our owners. And we also extend a cordial invitation to council members to come and visit the office park. We have a number of very diverse businesses. We have an escape room. We have an architect. We have several CPAs, several financial institutions, several attorneys, and I am a management consultant, and I have a conference space for small meetings and retreats. So we feel like we are representing the new way that small businesses operate in a city like Virginia Beach. So I have copies. I just wanted to hand those to the clerk and just say thank you very much, and we have an agreement.
Thank you. I'll pass those around.
Music might be-
The next speaker is Joel Cho. Would you like to speak, sir?
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody, mayor and the council members. And because I only have 3 minutes, let me just speak to the point. And I'm happy they give up that the tip area as an easement. Since the city need they need to redraw the plat map. I wish that property can transfer to our property, redraw the plat, because we will have a liability insurance, we'll have maintenance, we'll have future repair costs. So we will handle all these things. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the gasoline and the underground gasoline tanks, each one has more than 20,000 gallons of gasoline. So they have like almost 40,000 plus gasoline storing there. That's close to the property line. And actually this drawing is not accurate. That fence actually is in our property. Okay, that fence should be pushed back, okay, to their property. Then we are talking, our building is wood construction. And I'm not talking 40,000, not talking 40, 100 of that kind of gas. This is a huge tank. You have two, we see there's 2 tanks there. They really present like a safety issue to us. And then they have a big land, big property. They can locate on the other side. And we request the city, everybody, put a feeling on me to say, I feel I'm so fear about these things. Okay, they say this can explode. Regardless, they say, oh, this is safe tanks, but this is do explode. Okay, and can have accident. And I wish they can relocate to the other side, close to the street, far away from the property line. Then we have wood construction, dangerous. Okay, safety issue and also liability insurance issue. The second thing is their building layout. Look at this layout. This is the gateway to Virginia Beach. I live here 40 years, just in this half-mile area. My office here, my first house is just on Bristol Avenue, so close. So if we talk about this gateway of Virginia Beach to Virginia Beach, it's not like fancy words or propaganda or advertisement. Most people cannot visualize the future building, but I can because of my profession as an architect. So I think put the building there, the backside, to this corner. That's a bad idea. And we have a major street, Newton Road, has beautiful new building, Drone building. We have a Wright building. They all renovated, so beautiful right now with 2021, the world fashion color there. Okay? And we have another building, Carl Street, also very beautiful. Now I wish this building can has.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Jackson is the next speaker.
Mrs. Messner, please.
It'll be all right when it's over.
Yeah, I mean.
That's my neighborhood. I'm right around the corner. And I've watched the development of this neighborhood. Oh, I'm over in Point of View, which is a block over, but all of my shortcuts are there to avoid that traffic. So I gotta improve this. I gotta get this thing done. Most people don't know the back ways. They don't know how to go behind the buildings that he's talking about and come out on the other side. And so I'm definitely there. The traffic, I don't think the traffic's gonna matter a whole lot because it doesn't change the traffic going around that corner. It's a little tight at 5 o'clock in the evening and 8 o'clock in the morning, but I think that'll probably take some of that traffic off because a lot of people will cut behind that building. I think it's gonna make the corner look a lot better than it does now and that it has been for a pretty good little while. So I definitely approve it because it's just gonna make that whole intersection look better. And I think it'll move traffic better. So I'm in favor of it.
Hey, thank you very much.
Mr. Nutter, would you like to come back up for rebuttal? Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
That's all the speakers, sir.
All righty. Are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Votes open.
And again, my thanks to Mr. Nutter. Thank you.
By a vote of 10 to 0, you've approved the application.
Now, okay, as I said before, inappropriately, we don't have any appointments tonight. Any unfinished business? Any new business?
Yes.
Yes.
We did not have an opportunity today for council comments, but I hope we add to the agenda a discussion about the Virginia Beach Development Authority and their audit. I know the action we took with the Virginia Beach Community Development Corporation when they had their audit with a number of deficiencies, and I think we need to have a like discussion about what's the way ahead on that board.
Thank you. And if I could just make a quick comment, and quite frankly, with Mr. Rouse's comment about congeniality and civility, and our council has been through a number of challenges over the couple of years. And one of the things that we think, listen, we're a very diversified, eclectic council. But the thing is, I think we're all very much respect each other. We got a lot of things done over the last couple of years, passing budgets, and as a council, as a management team, I've said this before, we came through COVID pretty well. But once again, Mr. Rouse, I thank you for your comments and your congeniality in working with Mr. Holcomb. We're not always going to agree, but as long as we get along with each other, that is indeed a good thing. Okay, we are recessed and we'll get ready for open mic.
How long, Mr. Mayor?
We're adjourned, but that's okay.
I won't go. How long?
I'm just waiting for TVs to go off.
As soon as they turn the cameras off. Good time to go potty.
I just need, okay, Mayor, we're ready.
Okay, let's go ahead and call the first person.
The
Well, that was quick.